So you stayed here to learn how to communicate and connect better. And you also came here to get fed. We're not working out today, but this is a working session. If you wanted to have a rear end like you did in your 20s, that was with Jen. That's not here. I'm not going to have you do burpees, but I am going to ask you to work, because when you leave these conferences and people ask you like, hey, how was it? And you're like, oh, it was great. And you're like, what'd you learn? And you're like, I don't remember, because you get overloaded with so much information. And in fact, you have a 76% chance of remembering what you learned if you write it down today. And you have a 50% greater chance of actually doing something with what you learned today if you tell somebody else about it. So I want you to pull out your phone. I want you to create a calendar reminder for tomorrow at 10 a.m. And at 10 a.m. tomorrow, I just want you to make a note. Tell someone about my color. And tomorrow when it pops up, I'm going to challenge you not to snooze it, because you have 500 other things happening. It happens to all of us. So we're going to talk about yourself, what your preferences is for connection and communicating. We're going to talk about what other people's connections and communicating look like, how to recognize them, how to adapt, how to build those connections. And then I'm also going to give you a little bit of homework, because if you leave here with nothing, then you're not going to be able to take action. And so you have one extra pamphlet in your little book, and that's the Insights Discovery pamphlet. And so that's where you can follow along. You can take that back to work. And use that as reference as you go through your day tomorrow. Has anybody ever heard of Insights Discovery? No. Does anybody know who Dr. Carl Jung is? Awesome. Do you read his stuff? Yeah, he is brilliant. He's a world-renowned psychologist. If you follow Dr. Jung and his work, you're called a Jungian. Not young again, I can't do that for you. You're called a Jungian, so now you're a Jungian because you're studying his work today. And what he thought was that the world needed better ways of communicating, connecting. He thought people didn't do a very good job of that. And I don't know if y'all are paying attention to these days to social media, but I would say we're not doing a very good job as a human race of communicating and connecting. We make a lot of assumptions, we have a lot of biases, we have a whole lot of keyboard warriors out there. And so Dr. Jung recognized this back in the early 1900s. That's how far back this body of work goes. This is different if you've ever done DISC, strength finders, ideograms, all those. This is different. We're going to talk about your subconscious and your conscious mind, because you have preferences for how you communicate, and so do the people that are around you. Now, what's unique about Insights is that over 4 million people have taken the profile assessment, and it continues to grow every day. And every time somebody takes that profile assessment, it continues to inform the body of work, and it morphs over time, because the generations that took it decades ago are very different than the generations that take it today, right? How many of you work in a multi-generational workforce? Is it not awkward because you don't know what to say to the person that is an age gap away from you? Everyone's offended. No, you shouldn't be offended. You are too old school, right? Everybody has an opinion about everything. So I want you to read these. Can y'all read these in the back? If not, I can read them for you. You good? I want you to quickly read them, and I want you to pick the top color that most resonates with you. You might have 2, but no more than 2. That's the rule. You got yours? So here's what's happening. If you picked red, you think I'm moving too slow and you want me to hurry up and get this part over because you're hungry and you didn't have breakfast. If you're yellow, you want to talk to your neighbor about the color that you picked and why, and you want to know about theirs. If you're green, you're thinking, we need more time because not everybody feels comfortable with making a decision right now. And if you're blue, you want more information. This is not enough detail. You need more cards to pick from. I'm not judging you. It's okay. It's all right. So just keep those in your back pocket. So we're going to talk about this thing called perception. Right? And Dr. Carl Jung said that wisdom accepts that there's two sides to every story, right? And perception is really all this is your narrative. It's the story that you tell yourself every single day when you pull into the Costco parking lot and somebody takes your parking space. You automatically diagnose their childhood trauma and explain everything about them. What do you see? Shout it out. A girl. What do you see? An old lady. Who sees both? Who can only see one? Who's wrong? Nobody. It's your perception, right? Your perception is your reality. It is your story. It's your narrative. It doesn't mean one that is right or wrong. Does it get clearer with more information? It does. I want to be careful and make sure you understand that being willing to understand somebody else's perspective does not mean you agree with it. It's quite the opposite. It means that you're just willing to have a conversation and hear them out and think about how they might be experiencing something. So we're going to talk about this ladder of perception. How many of you have received either an email, a phone call, or a text, and you act like you don't see it because you know exactly how that conversation's gonna go? And if the person is sitting next to you, I'm so sorry because it just got really uncomfortable. Right? You know how it's gonna go because you know how this person is, and like there's this strife and this constant turmoil that you have with this other person. You just cannot find connection. There's something about their personality. They talk too fast, they talk too slow, they don't get to the point, they're too demanding, they talk over me, they want too many details, they nag me. Does that happen? So I want you to think about that person and I want you to write their name down if they're sitting next to you. Don't do that. Just draw like a symbol or something so you know who it is and it can't be the middle finger. Don't do that. Do like a star or a circle, their initials, but I want you to write that person's name down. This is gonna be your homework assignment, is to build connection with this person. And right now you just got real uncomfortable and you wish you would be doing blurpees with Jen. Yeah. I want you to think back to the last interaction you had with them where you left feeling less than good. Something happened, it didn't go well, you still remember where you were, why they were wrong, and you were right. You got it? That's the event. And what happens in your brain is it takes a picture like a camera in that moment. And it remembers everything about that moment, the smell, the detail, the time of day, how they were behaving. It's amazing how your brain works. It's really, really cool. It's not working. Hold on. There it goes. The next thing that happens is you select the data about that event that you want to remember. Who lives with someone that has selective hearing? If you have a teenage daughter, they have selective memory. It's all right, I got a tween, I know what's going on. You all have selective memory. How you perceived your event in your novel of that event, you have selected certain data that you want to remember and certain data that you have completely excluded from your memory. That's why when you recall the event of how horrible that person is, right? You're recalling it, you're only recalling your half, and when you talk to them about it, they can't even remember what they did to you. They're just justifying what they did because their memory is also selected data. The next thing that happens is you put value judgments against them. You're playing Jesus, y'all. You're judging them in every way, shape, and form. You're just dissecting their text messages. You're dissecting why they didn't put you on an email communication, why they didn't invite you to the meeting, why they did a poor quality job, why they talked over you, why they didn't invite you to the PTCA party. You don't want to go. But you put value judgments against it. And then the next thing that happens is you're going to interpret it and give it meanings. This is where you dissect them. You give meanings and values to what happened. Now, what's interesting about the ladder of perception is it happens whether there's a good event or a bad event. Your brain doesn't care. If something really good happens in your life, it does the same thing. If something's really bad, same thing happens. And you place value and judgments on those events that occurred. And then the next thing that happen is your left side of your brain pops up and you make logical conclusions about their entire life and why they've chosen to act the way they do. Because it's logical to you. Why else would they act like that? Right? And then the next thing that happens is you create a physical, emotional response. Your body responds. You might get sweaty. You might clench your jaw. You might start gritting your teeth. You might feel, an increased heart rate. But you have an emotional response to it. And then the next thing that happens is you form beliefs. And then you take action. Action can look like some type of retaliation. Or it can just look like justification for their behavior, depending on how we're communicating with them. And it happens in a split second, every single step. When it's not a good experience, we reference this as, Mark's going up his ladder. The key here is to be aware of what happens on your ladder so you can reframe the narrative and remember that your perspective is based on selective data and not necessarily the whole story. So this is one of the things that you have for homework when you get back to work tomorrow, and that thing pops up on your calendar at 10 a.m. that says share my colors. This is a tabletop exercise that you can do with your team. It's in your pamphlet. We're not doing it right now because guess what? We're not at tables. So you have to take this back tomorrow, and it's really these just two questions because it does really two things. It helps inform how you use the ladder of perception at work and how it might impact your workplace. There's the foundations to the insights model, and what happens is you have these psychological preferences. They happen completely on a continuum every single moment, and they do not deviate. What you think today is the same that you think tomorrow, and the only thing that actually changes your colors are major life events. And so that it informs a couple of things. And one is how you recharge your batteries. Another one is how you make decisions, and the last one is how you process information. You have this in your pamphlet. I'm not going to have you guys do the full exercise today because we are tight on time. But you basically have one of two ways that you're going to recharge your batteries. Now, you remember the color that you picked on the cards a little bit ago, and I want you to pay attention to these four quadrants as we go through these three foundations. You're either introverted or extroverted. That's the easiest way to tell you. My introverted people are my blues and my greens. You lead with an energy color that says, I would rather read a book than go to the party. You're not planning on going to the happy hour tonight. And if you do because your boss paid for you to be here and you have to show up, you're already planning a way to sneak out 15 minutes into the event. You got an exit strategy, right? My introverts are the ones who you've already made 2 new friends, you have 3 new Instagram followers, and you already have coffee planned for next week. Those are my extroverts, the ones that are looking for community and connection all the time. They bring life typically into a room. It's not that my greens and my blues can't, but my reds and my yellows are a little bit more. This is typically my sales folks. Y'all want to talk about everything. The next part is how you make decisions, and I want to really think about thinking and feeling. It doesn't mean that you don't both. You do, but you have a preference for one or the other. My thinkers are very analytical. They like details. They want all the specifics, and when something's missing, something's off. My feelers go on how other people feel about things. They want everybody to feel good in a room. They're empaths. They can feel the nature of a room. I like to think about this as my conversations with my husband. When I get a girls' night out, I come home, he's like, how was it? and I give him the play-by-play for at least 45 minutes. Who I went with, who I sat next to, what they had to eat, what I ate, what's going on in their life and their family, why I left when I left, and if anything else ever happened. When he goes out on boys' night, I say, hey, how did it go? Fine. What'd y'all do? Hung out? What'd y'all talk about? It's usually one of two subjects, hunting or firearms. Y'all gonna get together later, maybe? Like, no details. Does anybody else have a spouse like this? That hand went up so fast, man. I hope she's not sitting next to you. The last piece is I want you guys to think about this. If you had to write a novel about a snowman right now, what would it look like? Who would say the snowman has a black hat and a red scarf? The rest of you are gonna say, he's living his best life, waving to the world, and he looks really happy and it's cold outside and he likes it. Thinkers, details, black hat, red scarf. Feelers, everything else that's in that picture. You interpreted the snowman's life and how he feels. That's the difference between a thinking and a feeling brain. The last part is sensing and intuition, and so this is how we take in and we process information. My sensing folks are the ones that ground themselves in logic and facts before they move forward with an action, if you will. My other are the gut feelers. You're looking to feel the room and the energy before you make a decision. These are the leaders that say, how is my decision going to impact my employees? How does my employee experience impact my customer experience? Because both matters. So now you've seen your color and where it sits on the quadrant, and you're probably going, okay, I'm getting this, it's coming together. Here's the challenge with it. You're all four colors, so where you show up and how you show up is always going to look a little bit different. We have a couple of ground rules as you think about your colors, and the first one is this. It's describing you, it does not define you. And what that means is when you go into work or into your home, you don't get an excuse for your behavior because now you're informed. You don't get to walk in and fire off 1,000 directives and do it in a really curt voice and go, well, I'm just red, so you just have to deal with it. That's not how it works. It just gives you a little bit more clarity on how you're built. The next one is that it's a preference only. It's not your identity. The next one we have to live by is that you live by two dominant colors. So in a minute here, we're gonna do a little test and you're gonna find out truly what your color is in the best way that we can do this in our session today. But we have what's called above the line and below the line. You have two dominant colors that you typically lead with. They overshadow your other colors, and you have two colors that sit below the line. They're less dominant. And what happens is when you have to call on those other colors, like if my introverts have to be extroverts tonight at the happy hour, you have to call on your yellow energy and your green energy to act like you care and you want to talk to other people. And when you leave, you're exhausted, right? Because anytime you have to do something that's not natural for you, you're going to be exhausted. And I think I may have said this before, but you're all four colors. And so what you're going to learn is how to flex these colors today and how to build better connection. You have this sheet in your booklet. My ask is that you go to it. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to circle 10 words. The reason why is I don't want you overthinking it. My blue people, this is going to drive you absolutely batty. You got 2 minutes. My red folks are already done and wondering why we're waiting. My yellow folks want to talk to their friends about what they circled. You got 30 seconds. So the reason why I say we do this very quickly, you can't overthink it, because it's your first reaction. And your dominant colors will always rise to the top when you have a knee-jerk reaction. The actual personality profile assessment that we're not doing today is much more integrated. It comes back with a massive report that explains a whole lot of things about your subconscious and your conscious mind. So now I want you to tally up the number of reds, yellows, blues, and greens that you have, and you will have something that will stack in ascending order. And the one that you have the most of is your dominant preference. You might have a tie somewhere along the way, and that's okay. But you're gonna have one or two that's gonna fly to the top. Oops. There we go. Tally them up. God bless you. Are y'all getting your colors? Is it what you thought it was? I hear giggles. So here's the deal. 85% of the population only has two colors above the line, meaning you lead with two color energies. You have two preferences for how you communicate. There's a very small percentage of the world that has three. Again, thinking back to what I shared, over 4 million people have taken this test. It's also been translated into 33 languages and in over 100 countries. So when I tell you it's scientific data for my blue people, it's buried in science, and it's been tested over the years by multiple institutions and universities, and it is 100% accurate. So I'm giving you like a hodgepodge version of this. Where's my reds? Just stay with me. I promise it's gonna be a good day. Where's my yellows? Did you look at your neighbor's paper and ask them what they got? Where's my blues? Did you want more information? And my greens? You're really unhappy right now because I'm forcing people to go fast. It's okay, I promise, it's gonna be okay. So I also want you to think just about that event we talked about in the ladder of perception and that person that you avoided their text this morning. By the way, if somebody can invent an app that can erase that read receipt bubble on a text, I will pay money for that. We need that because there's people that we struggle to talk to. I want you to think about the attributes of that person that frustrate you. Write down 3 attributes. Is that because they talk over you, they're overbearing, they don't talk enough, they go silent? What is it? What are the actual attributes of this person that make you so frustrated? And I want you to write down a guess as to what color might be their preference. So one of the beautiful things about this body of work is the clients that I get to work with, and even in my own careers, when we do insights discovery as a team, we have these blocks. And the blocks sit on your desk. So when you walk into the room with that person, you know what color energies are going to be filling that room, and you can automatically pivot your approach to meet them where they're at. We're not doing blocks today, but I do want to share with you that if you have an organization and you're looking for better community and connection, this is one of the paths that you can go when you get your profile assessments. So this is you on a good day. This is what happens when you get all the sleep in the world, nobody was snarky during the day, and you are really excited about everything that's happening today. This is you on a good day. And remember, you're leading with 2 dominant colors. So my red folks is, man, you are getting stuff done. You're directing the path. You are organizing what's happening. You're making decisions. You are accurate. You're precise. And you are getting stuff done. My blue people is you're very analytical. And so you've got the organized details of everything. You're making sure that it's accurate. There's no errors. I hear more giggles. But you're also very formal, and you ask a lot of questions to make sure that every stone is unturned. These are the people typically that are going to ask the question in the room that everybody's thinking, but nobody's willing to ask. Like, should we really spend that money? My CFOs, directors of finance. My green people is you're really caring. You're like the mother hens or father hens. I'll be equal there. You're caring, you're thinking about how the employees are gonna feel, how your family's gonna feel when you make a decision. You deeply care about every situation that's happening. And my yellow people, you are exorbitant with energy. You're the sunshine in the room. You bring excitement to work. People wanna be around you. And when you go to the break room for coffee, you have to talk to everybody to get the update of what happened last night. That's you on a good day. Well, guess what? You have bad days. And when we have bad days, parts of ourselves show up that maybe we didn't want there. And we get into situations where we're under stress, or we don't have sleep, or there's stress at home and there's stress at work, and it's just too much. And when that happens, all this word vomit comes up and it comes out, and you just can't pull it back in fast enough. And this is what it looks like on a bad day. So that person that you wrote down, this might be their bad day. My red people, you're talking over your friends. You're cutting them off at the knees. You're being curt, sharp, and over-directive. You're trying to control everything in the room. My yellow people, y'all just get frantic. Everything looks kind of crazy, and you're easily excitable. So when one thing goes wrong, everything's gonna go wrong. And you can go down that rabbit hole really, really fast. My green folks, you become very stubborn and withdrawn because you feel like we weren't taking care of everyone, and your values have been challenged, and values are the most important thing. My blue folks, you start nitpicking every single detail, and you care so much about quality of data that if somebody ever brings you bad data, very difficult to earn the trust back again, that there's nothing wrong, so I'm gonna triple check your information constantly and question it. This is a bad day. So going back to your person that you have a very hard time connecting with, based on the attributes, where do they sit in the quadrants? What color do you think they might lead with? You have all of this. I have all of this. I can show up in one of these quadrants at any given moment based on the situation. I just prefer one or the other. So do you have an idea of where your person sits? Let me ask you this. Are they diagonal from you? So if you're red, they're green. If you're blue, they're yellow. These are opposing characteristics in people. So frequently, they're on opposite sides of the diagonal. There's about 3% of the population that has this natural tendency to be with two color preferences that are opposite one another. It's extremely rare. I know one of them, he was a fighter pilot. He did the whole Top Gun thing. He's unique in a lot of different ways, but that's not normal. Normally, the people that you're gonna have strife with are gonna be across, and you have to work harder on that relationship. So what do you do with this? Doing a time check here. What do you do with this? We're gonna talk about how to recognize the stress signals in your person and in yourself. So one, you can show up differently when you're under stress. You can also recognize those stress factors in the person that you're struggling to communicate with. So it doesn't have to be a bad day at work and because they irritate you. When you chose to come today, you came for professional development. You wanted to leave here with more information than you came with, and you get an opportunity to do that. If you leverage this model, you can actually make your workplace better. You can actually make your home life with less turmoil with your family and your friends because you're willing to meet people where they are and you're able to identify those signals that happen. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about our red friends. So if this is you, these stress signals should look very familiar. But if it's not you and your person leads with a red energy, these are their stress signals. And here's what you're gonna do when you meet with them. You're gonna be brief, you're gonna be bright, and you're gonna be gone. And what that looks like is this. Hey, Brian, I have 2 things I need to discuss with you today and get answers. Is there something you need to discuss today to make sure that we cover it? No? Okay, here's number 1. Here's number 2. Again, anything you need to discuss? No? Okay, great, thanks for the time. And you're gonna walk out. And you know what they think? You're amazing. You're awesome. You get them. You're getting stuff done because that's what they value. And on a bad day, when you try to do that, they still might show up a little bit different, but you have an opportunity to help them come down their ladder and not escalate. You're looking for these causes, right? You've got indecisiveness and being out of control. Those 2 things, when people can't make a decision on what to eat for dinner, this causes stress for a red person. This happens in my household every single day. I'm the one that chooses what we're eating for dinner because my family cannot. And if it's chicken again, you're gonna eat it because I made the decision. When you look at your stress signals, they become very aggressive, very impatient. They can raise their voice. They're not screaming and shouting, or maybe they are. If you work somewhere like that, I'm so sorry. But they raise their voice because they're getting so much energy and stress with them, and that's how it comes out. Or they just tell you to stop talking. Hey, can you just stop for a minute? I just need to get this out. They're trying to get control. So what do? Hey man, I'm gonna come back here in a little bit. Let's just take a break. And you come back, hey, I got one thing I need to get from you. You're very specific, you're very brief. Have y'all ever read the book Brevity? If you're trying to partner with someone that leads with red and you're struggling, go read the book Brevity. It will teach you how to be brief, and that's what they're looking for. The next ones are my sunshine yellow, and this means that you have to involve them. And we already talked a little bit about what this looks like on a bad day, right? Very frantic, very unorganized, things blow up out of proportion very quickly. But when you look at their causes of stress, it's that they don't have personal connection. They have to have fun at work. Do I have salespeople in here? Y'all are bored right now because you're not talking to anybody. They care about personal connection. And when they don't have it, this is what happens. They're thinking about something else. They stopped listening to me 5 minutes ago. They're thinking about where they want to be, what they want to do. They're thinking about what they're going to do this weekend. They stop being focused. You can't get them back in the conversation. They're not engaged. So what does this look like? How do you bring them back in? You're going to schedule a meeting with them for 30 minutes. And you know what you're going to do for 30 minutes? 20 minutes, you're going to talk about them. You're going to ask them about all the things that matter in their life. You're going to look around their office and you're going to look for cues. I see pictures of their kids. I see a soccer ball. I see a college photograph of volleyball. I also see an award. You're going to ask about those things that are in display that you know they value and care about for 20 minutes. And if you're red, it's going to kill you. And then for business, you're going to talk about it for 10. You're going to build the connection and meet that yellow person where you are. I'm asking you to color outside the lines. You're moving from your color to their color because you now have the information on how to do that. And the more you do that for them, guess what? They get to meet you where you are too. And then one day you're going to have the courage to say, hey, can I tell you about insights discovery? Can I tell you about these color preferences that we lead with? And because I want a better relationship with you. Nobody woke up this morning thinking, hey, I'm going to go make Bob miserable today at work. That's my number one goal. You think that. Are you Bob? Nobody really thinks that, y'all. But you feel like that sometimes, don't you? That's not people's goal in life. Believe it or not, people are conflict avoidant. They don't like conflicts, and that's why things fester and they just build up, and it creates this workplace that has these weird dynamics. The next one we have is our green, and this is that you have to show them that they care. You have to be willing to have conversations about the people that are being impacted around you and through your decisions. So if your person is green, or if you are green, your stress causes is that when you feel like values and virtues are incorrectly placed, something has rubbed against something you so deeply value, or the company so deeply values that you can't believe that it's happened. You're going to get stuck in your hole too. You become stubborn because you have thought about everyone and everything, and so your view is correct. And you are unwilling to change and move forward and try something new. Have you ever heard someone say, we don't do it like that. That won't work. Be careful with that because it stifles innovation in a company. You heard Eric say I worked at a Fortune 30. I supported a $20 billion piece of business. It was part of a $200 billion organization. This was one of the biggest things that stopped us in our tracks as an executive team when we were trying to drive innovation in our industry. And in the technology industry, it moves fast. We were not allowed to say, we've tried that before, that won't work here, and that's not how we do it. Okay, we're going to keep going. My blue folks, things that are going to bother your financially driven, IT analytical engineers, all my people that like the details, is when there is inaccurate work being presented to you. Or if you're at home and you know your kid is selectively giving you pieces of the story and it's not the whole story. This is going to drive you crazy because you want all the information to make an informed decision. And when you don't have all that information to make an informed decision, you get stuck. And what happens is you start nitpicking. You also will shut down. You're going to nitpick the heck out of something and ask a million questions, and then you're just going to go quiet. And people are going to wonder why. And so what you're going to do if you're going to meet with a blue person is that you are going to ask them before the meeting, what are the key objectives that we need to come away with? Are there 2 or 3 things you want me to have prepared before we meet on Wednesday? And you're going to have them. And then you're going to have a backup set of data. This is the person that wants 10,000 spreadsheets. If you work with a person that is asking you for report after report after report, and you're like, how many reports can we produce? Ask them this question: for what purpose? It shuts down the number of reports, it gets you focused back on your goals, and what is the data that you actually need to look at? For what purpose? I want you to be careful though. Never wing it. Never try to massage an answer for a blue person because they're gonna see straight through it. You wanna make sure that everything is double and triple checked before you put it in front of them. If you try to wing it and you lose that credibility, if you were listening earlier, I told you it's one of the hardest things to build back. Blue people hold grudges. They don't offer grace easily. That's something for them to work on. Okay. Knowledge check real quick. So we've talked about your color preference. You know what your color preference is to your other person. We've talked about some biases. Y'all have all judged me because you heard I was in HR. You automatically thought I was the kid that was picked on in high school, and I'd say you were right. You also judged all the people that have other color preferences that aren't you. You judged the person, right, that has the opposite color of you, but now you may have a better understanding of how to connect with them. And so that's what we're gonna do. And I want you to remember the bottom sentence that's up here on the screen is awareness is not an excuse. You don't get to say, well, I just lead with red and blue energy, so that's just who I am. My ask is that you don't take that stance, because if you leave here today and do that, you've learned nothing. And tomorrow will look like the next day. And it'll look exactly like it did a year ago. And you're better than that. So really quick, there's two things if you don't know what your person is that you look for. Number one is, do they speak to think, or do they think to speak? One of the biggest pivotal moments I've seen in careers when I do executive coaching is the willingness to call this out to the person you're connecting with and say, hey, just a minute, I need a minute to process this information before I give you an answer. That's a blue or a green person. They need to think before they speak. And on the other side of that, the people that need to speak to think, those are my reds and my yellows. And they want to talk it out loud before they land on a freaking answer. And it takes forever. It's okay. The other one is, are they more formal or informal? Formal, being red and blue, very task-oriented, they want to get things done. Informal is the green and the yellows. The informal people want to talk it out and they want to care about how things are going to come. This is a team wheel. If you want to know about a team wheel, or if you're curious to unpack more about your person, I do free 30-minute consultations. You can grab time on my calendar. But this is a team wheel, and the reason why I wanted you to see it is because if you ever do this with your team, what it does is it also shows you gaps in your performance as a team. Do you know what gaps are in a performance of a team? Gaps in your P&L. Because if you have an entire team that sits on one quadrant or one side of the circle, you're missing out. So if you have a team of folks that are sitting in your red, your orange, or your yellow, you're talking a lot, but you're not getting a lot done. You have a worksheet as we're wrapping up. We're not doing our worksheet today. This is your homework. My ask is that you do this before you get to work tomorrow, before that calendar pops up. And that's because you're gonna have a conversation. The next conversation you have with that person that you have strife with, that worksheet is gonna help you prepare for that conversation so it goes better and you don't feel miserable when you leave the meeting. I'd love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn. I do a monthly newsletter. It's a variety of leadership topics. It's like a 3 to 5 minute read. You can sign up for it. But my ask more than anything is that you become bold with the information that you've learned today and you're willing to color outside the lines. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate your time.